The next speaker is Jeanne Gang. Jeanne is the principal of Studio Gang Architects. Jeanne is a MacArthur Fellow, and her celebrated practice has produced a large number of built projects and architectural speculations, distinguished by innovative use of materials, concerted social and environmental approaches to design. Her work in Chicago includes the Nature Boardwalk at the Lincoln Park Zoo, Aqua Tower, and the Master Plan for Northern Ireland, which you've already seen, as well as the WMS Boathouse. Please welcome Jeanne Gang.
Hi everyone. I would like to talk today a little bit about a project that started with a book project and turned into an architecture project. When people think about Chicago, many times they think of this view of a skyscraper city, a dense downtown, and I think some of the presentations we heard, especially Charles, shed light on the city's relationship to its landscape urbanism in the downtown area. One of the areas that we've been really intrigued with over time, similar to Martin and Urban Lab, is this Calumet region to the south of Chicago that is really a series of wetlands and swampy areas, mountains, as you can see in the back. Actually, it's a landfill, and this post-industrial context of highly polluted, but also surprisingly biodiverse areas. And so in our practice, we have been holding a number of events and discussions with other architects and people like Deborah Shore and the NRDC, Natural Resource Defense Council, on the state of the river, the state of the waters. And during one of these eco-salons, as we call them, the idea came up to address the problem of the invasive species of carp making their way toward the Great Lakes. Out of this intense collaboration with many people, including some students from the GSD, the Graduate School of Design, and others, we produced a book called The Reverse Effect. And so now you already know what the reversal of the river is, so it's making my talk a little bit easier. It's such a complex series of events that oftentimes takes quite a while just to explain to people what the reversal actually was. So this was a project the book was a project that was intended to help the public understand the reversal of the river and the associated problems and issues and potentials that come with that. As Deborah showed, this was a massive project, infrastructural project that was undertaken in the 1890s with the engineers, the stars of the show, figuring out a way to save the drinking water of Chicago by diverting sewage away from Lake Michigan. And as Deborah showed again, this idea of the red lines are the sanitary and shipping canals that were created to pass over the subcontinental divide. Besides saving the drinking water, this was also an idea of connection, of transportation connection, from the Great Lakes and, all the way through the Great Lakes and over to the Mississippi, down to the Gulf of Mexico. So there was that aspect of it as well. There was a lot of battles between the states that surround the lakes here in court to fight what Chicago was trying to do. And it still goes on to this day. There are plenty of court battles about how we all use the Great Lakes. What I realized, I think, with one of our eco-salons was really that there was a chance to study a very complex problem, the problem of how shipping is changing, the opportunity of that, also the idea of keeping the invasive species from making their way up the Mississippi River and into the Great Lakes, and also the potential to rethink how we use water and how we could renew water, as Martin showed in his presentation. So I'll focus in a little bit on the invasive species issue. There were several species of carp that were released into the river, into the Mississippi River for the purpose of cleaning the water. They're filter feeding fish. And they have slowly been, they came from not this ecosystem, but they've been slowly making their way. They thrived in the Mississippi River, and they're making their way up to the Great Lakes. And if they did make their way into the Great Lakes, it would have a serious impact on our recreational economics and many other forms of industry within the Great Lakes region. So they're kind of scary. They're very big fish. They tend to jump out of the water when boats go by. So that's what you see in this picture. They're just flying out of the water. And people along the Mississippi River have been plagued with this and trying to figure out all different kinds of ways to reduce their population. They're really scary. As you can see, this lady is really frightened. But that's only one of the components. So the book really focused on, what are the issues surrounding the river? As mentioned, flooding, invasive species, water quality, don't go in the water, don't touch it, and also this great potential of this fabric along the city's river's edge that is available and essentially available. We did an approach where we interviewed a lot of people that were already using the river, some recreationally, some fishing, some new entrepreneurs, a guy who, Mark Idell, who's starting the vertical farm. Like I said, we taught the studio and had the students think about what a barrier would be like to reestablish this divide between the different water bodies. But essentially the big conclusion of the book was really to think about, it's such a big problem, maybe we have to think about it in steps. And so I think our design contribution to the book was really thinking about 10 steps, one by one, to renew this waterway system. And this is in consult with engineers and with MWRD and others that to understand all the different parts. And these steps, if undertaken, would ultimately end up in capturing water that has already been used, much like in the urban lab proposal for industry, but here doing that for neighborhoods and creating these freshwater lagoons that would then, that would cleaning the water and returning it to the lake. And to help the public understand this, really geared toward communicating this idea, we used imagery. I think something that architects are uniquely positioned to do is to help people envision the future. And it's not about what this design is, but it's really to say, we could take something like this and turn it into something like this with more neighborhoods, with more use of the water on a recreational level, but the water is actually being, the last step of its cleaning is happening here, and this could be a really fantastic place to live. The thing that was really interesting about this project going forward was that, after Mayor Emanuel was elected, his focus, he decided to focus on the river, and as you saw with Carol's project, really enabling new uses of the river's edge. But it's also true that the river runs through the backyards of the entire city, not the front yard. And so the first step in that book where we were suggesting maybe acquire former industrial property and increase public access to the river. This is the first step which is actually happening. That's why I'm so excited about the Boathouse project that I'm going to show you. So my point is really that if people don't have access, they won't ever care about this river and the quality will continue to be poor. But once you get the public and feeling like it is their amenity, it's their river, then things will start to change. And the resistance here was really that the quality is so bad that if somebody were to touch this water or get it in their mouth, they might actually end up in the hospital. And so how are we going to clean the river to the point where people can actually engage it? But the thing that happened actually was that people just started using the river anyway. And so getting this public access points, it really became crucial. So now we have, there are 4 boathouse projects, the two of them that we are working on, which is on the north side and the south side, boathouses that will allow youth to an access point to the river's edge for rowing, youth sports, and public access for kayaking and recreational sports. So the two boathouses, one of them is complete. It's called the Wms Chicago Boathouse, and it really is a space for 2 youth clubs that they can use for rowing, but they also have outreach and lessons for the public, and anyone can join into the club. And it's a great, they were kind of they were existing before this building, but the building has really helped them to become competitive in their field and also to touch more people within the city. They have programs, so the Boathouse clubs also teach the classes. They have programs for disabled veterans. They have programs for people who have suffered from breast cancer, have a club, and they find rowing very restorative and really soothing, as well as for the youth. It's been shown that, like, I think 99% of the kids that are in rowing actually have gotten into college as well. So it's a really great program. I started rowing after I, started working on this project. I'd never done it before. I wouldn't even, touch the river, get within. I'd look at it, but now I'm actually using it as well. So I think the most inspiring thing for me is to see this drone, drone video of one of the regattas, is that people are actually getting that access point. So step 1 is check off that box. This part of the river is incredible. It's almost like this ecological bird highway, and now people can really get close to it. We designed a building that would kind of try to embody the fluidity of that oar motion, and converted that into an idea for a roof structure that very simple, all straight elements, but using the straight elements to produce a kind of warped surface for the ceiling plane. This is under construction. And you can see here just a real simple construction, but really try to embody that energy. And I think this is an indoor rowing tank that they can use during that January, February months, the long boats here. And then just you can see how much activity is starting to come down to this riverfront. Super exciting. I think that to close, just that it's about access right now, as Carol's project showed, but it's also very much about architecture, because you could have access and provide that connection point, but design and architecture is the thing that people are getting really excited about, and the pride of having that boathouse is really what's bringing people through this neighborhood to claim the river for their own. Thank you.